Hey, Clyde, how's it going, man?
That's great, man. How have you been?
Yeah, good. I just come back from. I took a couple of days off. Took Monday, Tuesday off. Went for a hike, and you know me, right? Every time I go for hiking, there's no cell phone coverage or anything like that. And the first question I always ask when I get back, fingers crossed, is, "Hey, did Trudeau quit or get fired or Freeland or anybody else?" So, any luck?
No such chance. But we got a
Damn.
great quote. We got a great quote.
Okay.
Freeland. She's mastered the art of the non-answer, or just not answering questions. Period. I mean, it's not even like the art of like actually getting away. She's not a ninja by any means linguistically, but the way she answered this question just kills me. So I got to pull this one up. Have a gander at this one.
Clarity. There have been multiple reports that the Prime Minister's office is questioning your abilities as finance minister. Has Mr. Trudeau raised concerns about your performance with you, and perhaps you can expand?
Hard question.
You know, the Prime Minister's views are really something you should ask the Prime Minister about. But I am really happy to speak for myself and offer my perspective. And my perspective is that Canada is the best country in the world, and Canadians are amazing. And it is a huge privilege for me to serve Canada and Canadians as your finance minister and as your deputy prime minister.
That was the answer. That was the answer to the question.
Oh,
Marty, every time I get into a tough spot, if I'm being, grilled by the police in an interrogation, I'm just going to say, Canada is such a great place. And, it's a real
Mr.
privilege to just be
Yeah.
here.
Mr. Speaker, actually, usually she always says, first of all, thank you. It's a great question. And then, yeah, I know. You think she'd have a better answer? I think she's it's a legitimate question that everybody's asking, and nobody's answering it, right? Is she gone? Because we keep hearing rumors that she's gone. It's simply Trudeau's modus operandus. I mean, when things get bad for him, he throws somebody under the bus. Anybody
Mhm.
but him, and he's running out of people to throw under the bus. If he throws her under the bus, that'll be a big one. That'll be a big one.
Yeah. But she
And
was willing to do a lot for him, and she's like loyal. She's a real loyal to him.
she's
So if she gets
absolutely
it,
loyal.
holy cow, nobody is safe. And that's
No,
kind of the message I think that's going around in the Liberal Party. It's crazy.
well, and then there's this persistent rumor that just won't go away, and the persistent rumor is that Trudeau is inviting Mark Carney to join the party, and we've talked about Mark Carney. I mean, I don't think Mark Carney he would be bad for Canada, but I'd be worried if he did accept, because he does have that that cachet, and that he would be a good catch for the Liberals, a good candidate. I'd be genuinely worried, but I don't
So
think
I've liked your take on this
yeah.
previously, and you saying that Mark Carney, he's got a lot going for him. Why would he take the runner up position? Why would he take the I can't
Yeah.
remember how you put it. It was like the
the,
the
the,
the
the
next
rebound
girlfriend.
girlfriend, or the rebound
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So, what's her name? Michelle Rempel Garner. She had a good take on this one last week, where she was talking about how Trudeau is basically trying to set it up where Carney can't take his place by offering him the job as the finance minister. If he doesn't take the job, it looks like he's uninterested, and that the Liberals won't be happy to have him later when he comes to take the position of prime minister or leader of the party. So he's like make him look like a Johnny come lately,
Yeah,
instead of
yeah.
like someone who's really devoted to the Liberal Party or to the cause or whatever. So it looks like, from her perspective anyway, that Trudeau is trying to catch him between a rock and a hard place, even with the Liberal camp, so that he can't come in later and try to take his job.
Definitely. I mean, the Trudeau's not smart enough to do that kind of stuff, but some of people advising Trudeau behind the scenes, they're smart enough to figure that out, right? I mean,
Possibly.
yeah, yeah. And then Carney, yeah, like I said, I would be worried if he became a Liberal. I think he would get elected. He has terrible ideas. His ideas scare the shit out of me. I mean, he is, he's a globalist.
Well, he's got the same ideas as Trudeau. He's just probably going to be better at implementing them. That's the scary part.
That he's a better at implementing because he's run the bank and big corporations, but he sucks at being a politician. So that's the one saving grace, is that Mark Carney is not a politician. You know, people like him who've had like a brilliant career, a lot of them think that near the end of their career, the last feather on their cap is to get elected somehow, or maybe become finance minister, something to brag about at their dinner parties, you know, once they're retired. But he's not cut out to be a politician. So we'll see. We'll see. Like we said last week, I don't think we're going to see a lot of movement in Canada throughout the summer, especially with what's going on next door, right? I mean, the focus right now is in the US. I mean, I didn't have that on my bingo card. Holy smokes. Like, I did not have, you know, somebody taking a pot shot at Donald Trump on my card. That freaked me out when I saw that. I mean, like, wow.
Where were you when that happened? I mean, this is the question that everybody's asking now. What were you doing when you found out when you heard the news about what happened to Trump?
I went for a float down the river. I was floating down the river, having fun, just relaxing with the family. And then, well, it was my birthday last week, right? Yeah, Sunday. It was my birthday. It happened. Did it happen on my birthday? My birthday was on Sunday, or did it happen the day before? Anyways, I was having
Saturday.
Happened on Saturday. Yeah, I got home from got home from floating the river, sitting in the backyard with people. We're just having a couple of brewskis, and a friend came over to the house, and he's like, "Turn on the news." I'm like, "What for?" I'm having a beer. He's like, "Turn on the news." I turned on the news. I'm like, "This can't be real." It's like, yeah, somebody took a pot shot at Donald Trump. I was like, "Wow, that's totally freakish." Yeah. And then you
know what's crazy, because this is the bias against Trump. I'm actually at the moment I was trying to pull up the iconic photo, and I go on Google, and instead of them showing the iconic photo, it's like everything else other than that new iconic photo. Let me pop the screen on just so you can see. They'll show anything but. Holy cow! I'm like, Trump assassination attempt. Type that in.
So what did you? Yeah.
Because that photo now is the iconic photo, and it'll go down in history. I just wanted to pull it up to show everybody. So basically, if you've been living under a rock, I don't know how you wouldn't know about this already. But Donald Trump, there was an assassination attempt on him. He unbelievably, luckily, only got hit in the ear, and it was just at the opportune moment, he turned his head to look at the screen that was off to the side, and it just nicked him in the ear.
Yep.
And I mean, that alone is absolutely insane. But then he gets down, and where most people would be, you know, cowering in fear after something like that, no, as soon as he heard, like, from the Secret Service, the shooter's down, he got up and he wanted to greet the crowd, and he pumped his fist.
Well,
fight.
Yeah, and the Secret Service, the Secret Service exists to protect the president. I'm making a story here, but they exist to protect the president, but they also protect former presidents. So Trump will get protected for the rest of his life. So will Obama and Jimmy Carter, whatever. And the Secret Service are created by a special act of Congress, and they don't report to Trump. Like Trump or Biden. Like, if a Secret Service guy says, "Stop, you're coming with us, Mr. President," and the president says, "No, I'm not. I want to finish my speech," the president has no choice. The Secret Service overrules him. And I found that part rather amazing, that he's like, wait. And they gave him a second. They stopped. And then he did that fist pump. And you're right. He is. Well, actually, he's not the original gangster. People said he was OG for doing that. I posted a clip of Ronald Reagan. I mean, Ronald Reagan got shot, and then 2 or 3 years later, Ronald Reagan was on. Yeah, that's the iconic picture. But Ronald Reagan, after he got shot, 2-3 years later, he was giving a speech. And at one of his speeches, a balloon popped and went bang, and Reagan, without skipping a beat, just looked up and said, "Missed me," or whatever. And so Trump's brave. But, the other thing that struck me on Saturday watching the replays is Americans in general are brave. Like, there's shots going, and there's people just literally grabbing their pictures, filming, pointing to where the shooter is. I don't know why Americans, maybe it's the crowd he attracts, right? He's attracting more blue collar ex-military, ex-police officers, kind of guys like that, and they're not people who panic easily, right? I was impressed with that. Like the crowd didn't go berserk. Yeah, there's the Ronald Reagan one.
By its very existence and character, Berlin remains the most compelling argument for an open world. We're reminded of the many traditions of openness and democracy that have marked the history of this city. America missed me.
That's outrageous. Now that was after an assassination attempt was attempted on him, correct?
Yeah. His attempt was in 1981, and I think that speech was in 1984, several years later. But yeah,
the attempt on him was up close and personal, and somebody tried to assassinate him.
And I talked a little bit about that on Sunday. The contrast between the Secret Service in those days and the Secret Service today is different. You know, you did a video on it. I think everybody's made memes. I mean, this whole DEI of hiring whatever. I get that they need to hire women because, you know, there has to be a special detachment that protects the first lady and the daughters and stuff like that. But some of the, you know, if you contrast the video of Ronald Reagan being shot, I mean, when he was shot, that was one of those first times where we realized just who the Secret Service were, because, you know, Reagan's getting into his limousine and all of a sudden, bang, bang, bang. And all of a sudden he's on the ground. Guys are piled up. Machine guns are coming out. Guys are holding guns. They got like, it was like incredible. Whereas the reaction of the guys on Saturday, some funny memes about the two ladies or three ladies with the ponytail brigade, they called them. I mean, holy smokes.
Well, I've got one clip here that I thought this was probably one of the best of.
After Secret Service Barbie, a highly trained member of the Secret Service, removes her weapon from its holster for the very first time in her career. She struggles to return her pea shooter as though it's her first day on the job. Fortuitously, her skills from a previous life as an amateur actress come into play, allowing her to convincingly mimic the swift draw of the weapon and scan the horizon for threats. Chewing her gum nonchalantly, she attempts to exude a tactical demeanor, reminiscent of a fusion between the Blues Brothers and Rosie O'Donnell.
The people that put these things together is fantastic because watching them in the wild is amazing. It's amazing. But this is the kind of thing, like, this is why you go through the training, so that when you're in a circumstance, it's not like, what do I do? What am I supposed to be doing? Where should I be?
Trust your training, they say in the Army. You know, trust your training. I mean, and special for Secret Service guys, they have to do some really weird training. I mean, human behavior, you hear a bang like a gunshot, human behavior is to duck. They're trained to hear the gunshot and turn towards it or protect the president. I mean, that's a lot of conditioning to get to that point, and I don't think that lady is there quite yet. So
she wasn't conditioned, not at all.
No.
And that's why I thought when I heard all this news, a lot of people are doing speculation on what happened, what was going on, what the shooters should have been doing, like the snipers and all this stuff. I thought, what better thing to do than reach out to a good friend of mine, Danny Bulford. He's a former sniper who used to protect the Prime Minister of Canada. He's worked with Secret Service. He's, you know, because the Prime Minister is going everywhere. He's going and meeting up with all these different other world leaders, and the security forces have to communicate with each other. So he's familiar. He's familiar with their protocols, with the way they do things. It's not like there's different protocols all over the place or they're radically different. Things are much the same, and then there might be slight differences, but protocols are protocols. And I wanted to ask him, what do you think? What did you think about this situation? What was going on there? And especially about the snipers and that. He didn't think that the snipers did really anything wrong. What he saw on camera, what they were doing. And there was rumor that there was like a stand down order, and he squashed that right away. He said, no, there's no such thing in that kind of policing role, where if you see an active shooter or you see an active threat, you take it out. It's your discretion to do that, and it's your obligation to do that. So that was much of the point that he was talking about. But big question: why was there nobody on that roof? And that's a dereliction of duty. It's just there ought to have been somebody on that roof. There ought to have been a security detail there, or at least a presence, even at least one officer just there to deter anybody from trying to attempt anything, right?
Yeah, well, my understanding is that they would they treat all these events. They send an advance crew, a week in advance to sort of familiarize themselves with the lay of the land, talk to local police, local people like that, and So yeah, you would have expected that they would have spotted the building as a potential area where a sniper could shoot from. But it's a little suspect. But at the same time, I think the Secret Service is focused on protecting the president, and in this case, the former president has a small detachment, and I think they might have been a little bit too it had been too small. They didn't, so. Somebody took advantage of a little bit of lapse in the Secret Service, the size of the detachment assigned to Trump. I think if Trump speaks again, there'll be a bigger presence for sure.
Well, that's the other thing that Danny was talking about, was that like a lot of these officers probably weren't with the Secret Service. They were probably just pulled in, maybe from Homeland Security, maybe from some other detachments, and said, okay, here's the protocol. This is what we're doing today. Here's your role. But when you're in that kind of role, you're not focused on that role. You have several other roles that you're doing throughout the week, and then you've got the training, but it's not something that you focus on. It's not your main focus of your career. So people aren't the top duty in this kind of atmosphere. And then what was it later? Later, we find out more information about this shooter, how he had a rangefinder. He came to the event, went through security. They flagged him because he had a rangefinder. They thought that was kind of weird. Why has this guy got a rangefinder coming to the event?
I carry one, don't you?
No. Right? It's not the same as a binocular, you know what I mean? It's for finding a particular distance. I mean, it's not an attachment for a rifle, but it's something that you would use in conjunction with a rifle. I mean, this is what hunters use. This is what snipers use.
Golfers use them too. Actually, golfers use them.
Okay.
You could have made the excuse that he was a golfer, but yeah. Otherwise, the idea that it was set up, that's insane, man. Like nobody in the world, I wouldn't let Danny shoot at me. I wouldn't hold a can of beer in my hand and let Danny.
Oh, that it was staged.
Yeah, as good as you are, Danny,
like
I'm
Trump
not
was
letting you shoot at
behind
me. Yeah, no way, nobody.
Well, and so this is a curious thing, and I didn't know if we were going to get into this, but I do have a clip of this is James Klug. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, but he has he made a video going around asking people about what they thought went down at this thing, and that seems to be, I guess this is in California, what a lot of people thought.
It's a false flag.
False flag.
Yeah, false flag.
Somebody died and 2 people injured. What do you think about that?
False flag.
False flag.
I thought it was magnificently staged. It was professionally done. It almost looked real.
Wait. Staged by who?
Oh, by Mr. Trump, of course.
I think this whole thing is staged.
You think it was staged?
Yeah.
It depends on everybody's view.
Okay, so it's a long video. I'll leave a link in the description. This is James Klug. He went out, man on the street, to get interviews with people. Now, I got to call this out. I got to call this out.
Okay.
No, I have to call this out. Alex Jones went through massive litigation, and he went through this $1 billion lawsuit for having claimed at one point that the Sandy Hook shooting was a false flag, that it was staged, that there was crisis actors and all that stuff. He then realized that it wasn't, because it wasn't, and retracted his statements, apologized, but nonetheless they went after him for this huge thing. Are we going to get a similar thing? Like, why is there such a discrepancy between when it happens to one side and when it happens to another side? The reaction is this, the reaction is the same, and the consequences for those reactions are not the same. And like most people, just they want to see equal consequences for equal actions, and either apologize to Alex Jones and say, you know, we went after him maliciously with this lawsuit, or go after all these people for what they're saying, because it's equally as ridiculous.
Yep. Yep. What I was going to say, a friend of mine, maybe you know her. Do you know Rachel Emmanuel? She's a journalist with here in Calgary. She was there. She happened to be there, and she took a couple of videos. She changed her name now. She's Rachel Parker. You should invite Rachel on your show and talk to Rachel about this one.
Absolutely.
See what her thoughts. Yeah,
happen.
yeah. Yeah. You know me, I mean, I do believe in false flags. I do believe in false flags, but you know, they're usually, this one would be a little bit risky. I mean, you know, if somebody accidentally killed and taken a pot shot at the president, that's an insane false flag. Like, the other thing I liked about
just to think that Donald Trump would have the, you know, the confidence in some shooter to say, I'm going to be moving around on stage like this, and I want you to hit me right in the ear. And
exactly.
No closer.
And why would he do it? Why would he do it? First of all, it plays into, would he do it to try and discredit Biden? He doesn't need to. I mean, Biden just had a disastrous, debate with him a few weeks ago. By the way, I guess there was a recording of Biden saying we need to put Donald in the crosshairs, or put a bullseye on Donald or something like that. But back to what I was saying. Why would Donald Trump need to do this? He won the debate. He's hugely popular. If it ever came out that this was something attempted by him, like some weird stunt, that would backfire on him.
Oh,
I mean,
massively.
is the value of that image of him holding his pumping his fist up in the flag worth taking a risk just to get that picture? I don't think so. I think it was a real event, because there's no, you know, some disgruntled kid took a pot shot at the president, and that's what it is. You know, yeah, that's an iconic picture, man. Holy smokes!
Like most people saw that and they were like, "Oh, that's Iwo Jima," you know, like it.
Yeah.
What else can you compare that to? That's gonna go down. That's the shot of the century right there.
Yeah.
And we almost had a Franz Ferdinand moment. The world would have imploded if that bullet would have gone a little bit to the left. Like that, I'm glad we don't live in that world today. I'm really glad we don't live in that world today.
That was my first tweet. Post this. That was my absolute first tweet when I learned that this had happened. I said, we just avoided, you know, a civil war in the U.S. because if somebody took a pot shot and killed an American president, the way it's boiling over in the U.S. right now, that could trigger a civil war. So we, you know, yeah, and that's the other reason. Why do this? Why do a false flag or something like that? There's no reason for it. No reason for it. Did you see the reaction? We were all waiting to see what the world leaders would comment and whatnot, and nobody had anything. Everybody said the expected things. You know, there's no place in politics for violence, blah blah blah. But Poilievre said something, you know, very banal. There's no place in politics for violence, but I'm glad the shooter's dead. And then they tried to get Poilievre canceled or whatever. You know, the crazy left accounts were like, he's not leadership material. He's like,
oh, the pearls were clutched. I mean, I saw Andrew Coyne. I commented on his post. Like, really, you're gonna go after that? That's what you're gonna go after a president was just shot at. That
empathies to the family of the shooter, like.
Yeah, but this is also at a time where this we can largely blame on the media. We can largely blame that occurred because of the media and the hit job they've been doing on Donald Trump for 8 years. They loved him before 8 years ago. And 8 years ago, he went down that escalator and they immediately flipped on him. They hated him and they've been character assassinating him ever since. And they've been telling people that he's literally Hitler, that he's a bad guy, that somebody needs to take him out. I mean, guys like Joe Scarborough every morning going on and on and on about it. These people are to blame for why this happened.
that was one of the gut reactions of people on site. Did you see that? So once Trump had been hauled away, and then people are just sitting around themselves talking, trying to figure out what happened. A lot of people turned to the crowd or to the media that were in the crowd and started yelling at them, saying, "This is on you. You know, this is your fault," and addressing the journalists from whatever CNN and Fox or whoever was there. So people are. Yeah, people were. That was a reaction. That was a visceral reaction. People were blaming the media for this attempt. Anyways, I think
people have painted it. Well, people have painted it in a particular way, and saying that Trump supporters are racist and all of this stuff, which is largely not true. And most people that go to these rallies, they come back out of it. Like if they went there in opposition, they come back out of it questioning their whole worldview because of what the media has been telling them. And this is what's been largely happening in Canada. And I'm cautious because like we keep hearing from the media and the Liberals that Pierre is bringing American-style politics to Canada. He's not. He largely isn't. But what they are doing is bringing American-style news media to Canada and throwing pot shots at him, saying the exact same kind of rhetoric that Pierre Poilievre is flirting with the far right and racists and all of this stuff, and saying all the same stuff that they said about Trump. And it's really setting the stage for somebody to do something like this to Pierre Poilievre. And I don't want to see that happen.
Yeah, Pierre should honestly just stay quiet throughout the summer. That's what I've been saying. You know, he should just stay quiet, man. Like, don't anything he says right now is going to be, he's going to get attacked, and nothing's going to stick. They're harmless attacks, but they're distractions, right? Just let Trudeau self-implode. Just let Jagmeet Singh. I mean, Jagmeet Singh again yesterday was like in front of President's Choice, holding a bottle of olive oil and saying, if I get, when I'm prime minister, I'll put price controls on olive oil. I'm like, yeah, let Jagmeet talk. Let all those guys talk. Let Olivia Chow talk. Let Jody
attacking him anyway. But this is the thing. They're attacking him anyway. And at least he has the balls. And I got to say this. He's got the balls to at least stand up and say something back to them. Here's a clip of Pierre Poilievre. He confronts a reporter for parroting government lines about these, these safe injection clinics.
Every single penny will go to treatment and recovery services to bring our loved ones home drug-free. Thank you.
Okay, merci.
Nice try. Nice try. The Supreme Court didn't say that. See, I know what you're trying to do. The Supreme Court didn't. No, I'm giving you my answer. The Supreme Court did not say that there can be. It's okay. The Supreme Court didn't say that you can have a drug den wherever you want. It said that there are reasonable restrictions that can be placed to stop them from opening up in locations that endanger the community or where there is community opposition. That's what the Supreme Court actually said. Now, I know that wacko politicians and the Liberals and the NDP and their supporters in the media want to make it sound like there's a constitutional obligation that we allow these drug dens anywhere they want to go up. That is not true. That is the opposite of true. We have the power under Section 56.1 of the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act to reject these drug dens and shut them down where they endanger the public, and that's what I will do.
See, I like this Pierre Poilievre. I don't like the Pierre Poilievre that chills back and avoids the media and doesn't say his thing. I like this Pierre Poilievre. Will speak back at these reporters that are giving us falsehoods.
I like him this way. I like him more than, if it went viral, the Apple video, but I like him more this way. I totally agree. I mean, I like when in the earlier part of this engagement where he's like, they're not safe sites. They're, he's like, that's the narrative. And the journalist turns around and says, okay, well, call them supervised sites. And Pierre's like, they're not safe sites. They're not supervised sites. They're drug dens, Yeah. And yeah, I like when he challenges him that way. And by the way, he's 100% right. Like, I weighed in on this one too. I mean, would we give alcoholics like a free access to the bar? Come to the bar and get some free booze at the bar, and we'll supervise you while you get pissed. Like, that's what we're doing, right? Like when you challenge people, like, what are we doing? Like giving hard drugs to people for free in a quote unquote. Oh, wow, actually, who had the funny take this week? somebody had a really ridiculous take on safe injection sites. There, I just did it myself. Somebody had a ridiculous take. They called them. They did mental gymnastics and said they were medical establishments because they save like 5,000 lives. I'm like, yeah. So a guy comes in, overdoses, you save him. He goes back on the street, gets more free drugs, comes here, overdoses, and you save him. Like I could say this.
Oh,
like,
so did they count that as a new save? Did they save?
Yeah. They were saying
time?
that absolutely. They were making it sound like, oh no, God, who was it? It was some journalist or some MP, but anyways.
No, if you save the same guy 15 times, you didn't save 15 lives. You just prolonged the existence of a miserable existence for one guy 15 times. We should really be pulling people and give them the option of treatment, real treatment to get off of these things, because that's what these people need. People need to get off of that stuff and become, members of society again.
We made it harder to get ivermectin than we did to get fentanyl. It's crazy. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy when you think about it. Yeah. No. Let's finish real quick on Trump. So part 2 now. Okay. Trump goes to his. So now he's at his official. The Republicans are holding.
The National Convention. Yeah.
Yeah, and he announced his running mate while I was gone. So who's his running mate?
JD Vance. So I was hoping. I was really hoping for Vivek Ramaswamy, because I like the way the guy talks. I think it's great. I thought, optics would be good. He's not a white guy. Everybody's assuming the Republicans are just full of white guys. So he wouldn't have filled that role. He's kind of a curveball to everybody, because you hear about him and then you hear what he says. Oh, he's bang on. He was hoping for the pick too, but he congratulated JD Vance, who was, for me, a relatively unknown. I didn't know much about him. I did some research and I did a video on him just this morning for people watching yesterday. So go check that video out. But yeah, originally he was a never Trumper 8 years ago. He didn't like Trump because he thought he was bolsterous and all this other stuff. But then it turns out that they're very much aligned on policy. And JD Vance is very much a policy guy. And holy cow, can he talk?
Is he a former governor, or who is he? Like, I know nothing of him. Like,
I don't even know where his position was. I've just seen interviews on what he's been doing, and so he's run.
So not a guy who was on the Vegas odds then. Yeah.
No, not in my estimate anyway. I'm just learning largely about him. But what I found really impressive was his grasp on Canadian politics. So he's been commenting on X a ton over the years about Canadian issues, things that have been happening in Canada, saying what in the world's happening in Canada, when he sees videos of churches burning down, multiple churches burning down, weighing in on the Emergencies Act, weighing in on what was being done to the trucker protest. And he was really in tune with Canadian politics. And it turns out he's got friends within the conservative establishment here in Canada.
I'm gonna have to go check, but I think I'm following him. I think I was already following him. So because some of this makes sense. All right, cool. So a name to follow, and then we'll have more to talk about on Trump and JD in a couple of weeks or whatever, and see how things go for them. Awesome.
Yeah, I've got much more research to do on him, but I like him already. He sounds like a good pick. And the thing too is that CNN's journalist, what's his name? I loosely throw the term out, journalist. I forget his name, but he was really scared. Actually, he said that this is really dangerous because JD Vance coming in under a Trump ticket could lead to a longer Trump legacy in the Republican Party and in the establishment in America, which is great. That's something we want to see more of. We want to see more of that moving in. The big danger, MAGA Republicans, but people that are concerned more about liberty, American values, our way of life, keeping that going instead of moving on into this new century initiative, these things that globalists have planned for us. They're saying no. Let's go. Let's not back. Let's go into the future with the values that we've had in the past.
Right. Another good spin-off of, well, if you want to say a spin-off, but another good thing that came out of this week, the assassination attempt and the convention, the American stock market is going like bonkers, man, like hot. The American economy is just firing, which is bad news for us, man. I mean, we live next door to a giant economy, and they're firing, and we're going in the opposite direction. Their inflation's coming down. Their interest rates are good. We're going completely opposite. And I'm happy for the Americans, but a lot of this good stuff for the Americans is not going to help us. That's not the kind of stuff that necessarily spills over to us, you know. God,
well, it's because we live in a country with the current administration that's an adversarial role with the United States of America.
Yeah,
and I really want to push this because this is something that's been popular in Canada since I want to say the first Trudeau, Pierre Elliott Trudeau. This concept that the Canadian, you know, our image of ourself, our identity is that we're not American. It's right. And I hate this concept that Canadians have. Like, our
television is different. Our healthcare, right? That was we convince ourselves that we were different, and often different and better, right? How many times did I ever hear as a kid, "Oh, you know, Canadian healthcare is better than American"? No, it's not. We've been told it is, but it ain't. You know, we need Canadian
definitely isn't better.
Canadian television, yeah.
Canadian radio, like what?
Yeah, no, I understood what we did. I understood that we needed to try and do something to sort of maintain an identity separate from the Americans, but
I always hated the cultural effect of it because I was raised a dual citizen. My dad's American, and I've always thought, what's the problem? What's the problem? I like American culture. We all love American culture. Why you gotta be so snobby about it? And I really think this is a perfect opportunity with this, especially what's happening in Canada politically and America politically. Trump is going to be the next president of the United States. It's a shoo-in, especially after an assassination attempt. We've seen this throughout history. It was every state's going red. Let's just say that, essentially or ostensibly. But we're going in the same direction in Canada. We're going in the same direction in Canada, and this makes a unique opportunity for us to reshape this culture and get rid of this idea that Americans are somehow bad. They're our neighbors. We share the longest border with them. It's crazy. They're our biggest trading partner from the Canadian perspective. From Americans' perspective, it's you're lucky to have us. You know that? Like, it really is a situation like that. So we should really have an embrace, and we should really take that opportunity to bring that together.
It'll be interesting to see. I agree. So this is Trump's to win. Well, in fact, he's one step closer. I think today Joe Biden announced he had COVID. You know, Mr. Vaccine.
Oh, he got a convenient.
Yeah. I mean, they're piling up on him. They're trying to give him an excuse to bail out. But anyways, Trump's going to win.
He says he's not gonna. He says he's going. He's in it for the long haul.
He's insisting. But have we ever seen Trump and Poilievre? I'm just thinking about what does it look like in the future? I've never seen a conference. They wouldn't have had a reason to meet. They might have met a few times.
I'll tell you what. Up until now, Pierre Poilievre probably would have avoided it at all costs because what are the Liberals trying to do? They're trying to paint him as Trump.
American style politics. Yeah.
And amazingly, if he got together with them, it would just give them a giant thing to push forward. But this is where things are changing. Now people are turning around on the media and saying, you caused this assassination attempt. It's your fault. And as the Liberals keep pushing this rhetoric and the media keeps pushing this rhetoric, it's our jobs to keep pushing it back at them that you're goading on an assassination attempt on Pierre Poilievre. And it'll be blood on your hands if you keep doing this. We got to keep telling them that. We got to keep saying it because this is what's happening. And, we've got to dethrone their rhetoric, or take away the power of their rhetoric that they do.
Actually, some of the most disgusting comments in Canada came from the left this week. I mean, there were people who made, too bad they missed this and that, and thinking that that would be a popular opinion, thinking that wishing harm on Trump would be a popular opinion. It's not. I mean, the people who took that line, that backfired on him. I know there's a professor in Victoria that had a hard time. There's a couple of employees of different businesses.
Did she lose her job over it? I wasn't...
I don't imagine she will. Professors are tenured and whatnot, but yeah, my point is simply this. Yeah, it was easy to score points by saying you were against Trump 5 years ago, but now you might want to be careful when you pick a side. So I agree. So for Pierre, we might see him cozy up to Trump a little bit more, warm up to him, or maybe he'll warm up to JD, the vice president, or do something like that. I mean, they need to cozy up to one another because Pierre needs to start thinking about how he's going to fix our country when he's elected. And I have no doubt that Pierre is going to get elected. I mean, bringing in Carney or whatever the Liberals try to do, they're done, man. They're done. Like there's no more movement in the polls. They're going to get 217 seats. The other 120 seats are going to get divided by the Liberals and the NDP and the Bloc. And the remaining Liberal strongholds, I think Toronto was an exception. Toronto St. Paul showed, everybody got excited. It showed that the Liberals could lose any seat. Sure, they could, but that took a lot of effort. I think, the lines are drawn. And Jagmeet, my God, did you see him this week? Did you see his video of him talking about grocery prices? He's still going on about Loblaws. He's still like,
well, what did he do? He picked olive oil, which has been some of the things that he chose were actually, so the apples are well out of season. So they're going to be at the highest price that they'll ever be, of course. And then
and olive oil.
I'm not and olive oil, which is gone through like a massive price surge. But
I posted a video.
That's not to say that he's not right, that prices are gone up, but he picked two items that you can explain away from market phenomena why they're more expensive. Why not pick some of the things that, because it might be because of his government. That's why you might not want to pick some of the other things.
Yeah, and he talked about price control. I mean, if he tries to put price control on olive oil, I know what will happen. I mean, the people that produce it, import it, and distribute it just won't distribute it. And I made that exact comment, and I have a lot of lovely followers from Russia and places like that, and they all laughed about that. They're like, "Oh yeah, back in the days in 1980 when I lived in Russia, we didn't have olive oil." No, they didn't. And they're laughing about it because I guess it was a real joke for them. We had to render cows and turn it into oil and this. I'm like, I can just imagine. To my Russian followers and the guys from behind the Iron Curtain, you guys are so amazing. I need more of you guys to speak up because yes, you've lived through communism, the failed communism, and anybody who says it wasn't done right, it's never been done right. It's done right because it can't be done right. So oh God! Can you imagine?
I need to get somebody on to talk about that. I really need to get a guest on for that.
You need. I've mentioned Kirk. I'll get you to speak to Kirk. You need to. I'll reach out tomorrow. You need Kirk and maybe another friend of mine. And then Kirk's really smart, well-spoken Russian who lives here. When I meet him in person all the time, I could sit there and talk forever. And we do. We laugh. I mean, life in Russia in the 1980s, man, was not easy. They are pumped, right? Russians, they're a special breed, right? There's an expression in Russia, they're not happy unless they're unhappy. So, I mean, life was miserable, right? Like Siberia, cold, rations, nobody, I'll tell you one quick story. He told me one quick story was crazy, right? How we talk about housing and stuff like that. He's like, back there, they solved the problem. They built buildings, what do you call them? What do you call a place where people live?
Apartment blocks.
No, they have anyways, they had a special name for it, but they built huge apartment buildings and they were 20 stories high, no elevators, very bare bones, and the projects he calls them, right? Kind of like the Americans had the same thing. And he's like, when I was a kid,
you got the 20th floor, and you're like,
those are the funny stories. He's like, I would leave and go to school and whatever, and then my mom would pack me a lunch, and then he's like, you would never go back up the 20 stairs because you forgot something. You spend the whole day at school to avoid going back up 20 flights of stairs. And then he described, he heard me about, renovating the house with my daughter and stuff like that. He's like, oh, that was funny as hell. If you got a new fridge, because you know, if you're lucky and you won the lottery, the old fridge got pushed out the window. You didn't bring it back down. You just they had a space at the bottom of the building with an X, and then they would push the fridge there, and they would just smash. And then you hire guys to walk a new one up the flights of stairs. But I'm like, yeah, you Russians are different, man. Very pragmatic, very simple, elegant solutions that just won't work for us.
elegance right out the window.
Yeah,
that's something. Well, let's talk about some of the elegance that's happening over east of us. I'm thinking about Toronto right now. I put this one out there. I'm sure there's something poetic to be said here. You know, Toronto's Mayor Chow wanted to implement a rain tax, and now they've got more rain than they could ever shake a stick at. They're being flooded. And of course, you know, you got the usual type saying the atmospheric rivers or whatever garbo they want to say. No, this happened back in 2013 as well. It's not a new phenomena. It means that they didn't spend any money on actual infrastructure. They've been taxing the crap out of their citizenry, and they haven't been putting it into anything useful. A lot of probably DEI projects. A lot of just throw money at stuff, art stuff, and all that, but nothing really
similar.
Useful.
Yeah, I'm not 100% familiar with Toronto, but I'm sure it's the same as what we had in Calgary. Instead of spending on the water main, we had bicycle lanes for winter that were used by 50 people. We had drag time storytelling at the library, rainbow-colored sidewalks. Yeah, that's flooding because the manhole, the sewer, not the sewer lines, but the
drainage
the drainage systems were plugged and stuff like that. And all that infrastructure has to be maintained, man. Like you gotta, lines get plugged. There's a reason we used to send crews all the time to unplug lines and make sure everything's working. So that when that big rain comes along, I mean, there's no excuse. Like, there's no excuse for a 30-inch pipeline underground, not able to handle, even a once in 50-year water storm. I mean, people say, 100 millimeters fell in one shot. I'm like, so what? It should be able to haul it away and drain into Lake Ontario.
It's right there. It's right there.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. But it's an infrastructure they neither have they maintained it, no. And have they upgraded it because they know that they're prone to flooding if there's a great amount of rain that come in. We've all heard about the lake effect. It's something that happens. I grew up in Ontario.
Yep.
I know about this. I know about Toronto too. And you put a bike lane in, nobody's going to use it in the winter because it's too cold, and no one's going to use it in the summer because it's too damn hot. It's just, that's a city that's like, it's one extreme or the other. And let's put some money into the infrastructure, not into crappy.
I gotta go visit Toronto one of these days. I haven't been there in 20 years. I need to go visit it. I've asked people, is it as bad as it sounds? And everybody says it is. So I need to go see Toronto.
Just go in June or September. Don't go in July.
Don't go in July.
Winter.
What's their equivalent of like the Stampede? Do they have a festival or something that turns the city crazy in the middle of summer, or?
Probably not. I haven't been there in a long time.
What's there to do in Toronto anyways? What do you do in Toronto? You go in
Toronto I lived there for a brief period in like 99, and if you don't want to go out to drink and you've already eaten, there's really nothing to do. Great
maybe
food.
A couple of museums.
Great
food, right?
Great food.
It's a big city.
Yeah, back then.
Big city. Yeah. Go see it. I guess if you're a sports fan, it's kind of like going to any large city. You can go see the baseball and the football and a few things like that. Go up to CN Tower. But now forget it. I changed my mind. I don't need to go see Toronto.
Fair enough. Well, not anytime soon anyway. It's flooded, and they're gonna be.
And plus, the liquor stores are on strike there. So why would I want to go there? I see. Look, folks, I bought this at a private liquor store. And people are talking about, if the LCBO gets sold, that's billions of dollars of revenue that the government will lose. No, it's not. It's billions of dollars that'll still stay in the economy. It just doesn't go through the government. If I'd rather buy a beer.
I'm not gonna stick up for even the stores in Alberta or in British Columbia. I know private entities can own some of these stores, like in British Columbia.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't think the government should have their hand in alcohol at all. I think they should
I
get out
don't.
of it, and I think that you should be able to sell it at the corner store, and I think they should back right out of it.
Well, our two respective premiers just signed an agreement. We'd been fighting for years. I guess we couldn't import directly Alberta wines or BC wines and vice versa, and then they finally signed a
Yeah,
deal.
it's
I mean,
crazy.
it's crazy that in Canada we have interprovincial trade barriers. I mean, there's people in Nova Scotia who've gone to jail for driving across to Quebec and coming back with 16 cases of beer in their car. I mean, what do you mean I can't do that? Like if I got pulled over for crossing the border, I'm like, I'm not bringing guns or whatever. I'm bringing beer from Quebec. It's like, oh, you got more than 4 cases, you're over the limit. Yeah, we have interprovincial trade barriers. Crazy.
You feel like Smokey and the Bandit going over.
Is that what that movie was about?
The whole premise of the story was, Smokey and the Bandit. The idea was that the truck was carrying beer to a state over the border where there was like liquor law. It was bootlegging, and Burt Reynolds was there to distract the cops and get them chasing him all over the place while
the truck was delivering beer.
Was delivering the beer.
You know what? I've never seen Smokey and the Bandit. Like, I'll okay.
Jerry Reed and yeah, you got to go see it.
I've seen the scenes on say YouTube or whatever. I've seen the iconic scenes of like.
The song though. The boys are thirsty in Atlanta, and there's beer in Texarkana.
No, it doesn't even ring a bell. The only scene
saying we got to bring it. We got to bring him the beer. That's the whole.
I remember sort of 2 scenes from there. There's the iconic scene of Sally Fields throwing her dress out the car or whatever. That's one scene, and then the other one is who was the sheriff? Was it? It was Jackie Gleason, right? Jackie Gleason sitting in the restaurant eating with the ketchup all over his face, and Burt Reynolds is next to him, and he doesn't know that. Anyway, I've never seen the movie. I'll have to go watch Smokey and the Bandit. I love talking about these old movies, but they're not that easy to find. Yeah. Hey, you know what came out on Netflix the other day, and I won't watch it because I've watched it once, and I will never watch it a second time. Bone Tomahawk. Have you ever seen Bone Tomahawk?
Don't know it. Oh.
Bone Tomahawk just came out on Netflix. It is violent. It is a crazy Western. And it was spooled up, and my wife was watching it the other day. I'm like, honey, you have no idea what you're about to watch. Like that's gory. Hey, what else is going on? We covered quite a few things.
I think
inflation.
We've covered it all.
We never talk about inflation.
We didn't even talk about it. No.
Let's talk about it.
We predicted it.
Yep.
About a month ago. We talked about they're flubbing the numbers. Here, watch, the next inflation numbers are going to be favorable for the government because they've changed how they measure it. And sure enough, what did they do? They've brought us out the numbers, and the numbers look fantastic. I have this. I'll pop this up on the screen just here. We've got Christopher Freeland saying inflation in Canada fell to 2.7% in June. For 6 months in a row, inflation has been within the Bank of Canada's target range. And I said, what do you know? Hey, what do you know? They changed how they measure the effects of inflation, and a month later, the numbers look more favorable. And I always make sure to say they changed the way they measure the effects of inflation, because this is the effect of inflation. Prices going up. Inflation is printing more money, adding to the monetary supply. That's what that is. We're just looking at the effects of it. Now, Roxanne, she jumped in here and said, the important thing to explain about inflation is that it's a cumulative. So for stats, so far, the StatsCan number is 26.63 since the Libranos took office. So yeah, that's the real number is 26. And
then the other thing about inflation, the calculated inflation, and actually you're right. Instead of calling it inflation, we should just call it the consumer price index, because inflation is a measure of like the value of money kind of thing. But the consumer price index is measured on a year-over-year basis, and sure, it's gone down. So year-over-year June is lower than year-over-year May. But from May to June, there's been an increase. We've had 3 months of monthly increases. So inflation is the consumer price index is all out to lunch. And then this month, they started using the term CPI trim where it's a complicated measure, but they remove the tails of inflation. So, inflation, all the goods in the consumer price index basket are distributed, and they remove the tails. They remove the things that increase too much or too little. It's like, Jesus Christ, guys, can you stop doing this? Like, it's insane, the game. I mean, I was hiking with a friend yesterday, and he asked me a blunt question. He's like, what do you think will happen to interest rate? Because he's facing a renewal on his mortgage. And I'm like, Steven, it's going to go up, man. Like, mathematically, there's no,
It's
there's
insane.
Yeah, the bank and yeah, inflation numbers came out today, and there was already pressure on the Bank of Canada to lower the interest rates. They can't do that.
That's all that is. It's a political move to get the Bank
Yeah.
of Canada to lower their interest rates once again, and they can't because they know that the numbers are false. And as soon as they lower the interest rates, it's going to lead to more and more inflation. It's going to run away
Yeah.
on them. It's really insane.
Well,
I thought of a great video idea is to go
Sure.
to go to a construction site and construct a ruler that constantly like fluctuates. So it's constantly moving, and say, hey, can you build me a house with this?
Yeah.
I can use that.
A
And just
spring.
watch what the lumber looks
Get the
like.
guy a little spring with the 1 foot the increments on a spring. Yeah, build me a house with this. Jesus. Yeah. Speaking of, my hands are sore from doing all my renovations here, but I was going to say something else on inflation, and I love how the Chrystia Freeland and them, they still insist like our measures are working. What measure? What measure is working? Right. The only reason some categories are coming down is because the supply and demand is acting. I mean, I drove to northern Alberta last week. The roads are empty. And people go, what do you mean they're empty? I'm like, they're relatively empty. I've been driving these roads for 30 years. I have a sense of when the roads are full and they're not. The national parks are empty. People aren't traveling. And so people aren't going on their vacations because they can't afford it. So what's happening? The price of gasoline will come down a little bit. And the price of air tickets will come down a little bit. And that's not because the supply of money is going up or down. It's because people aren't doing those things. So supply and demand adjusts itself, takes care of itself, right?
And I've heard word here in British Columbia, even in Vancouver, that some of the big major projects are being canceled because investors don't want to get into it. They're looking at it now that they can't flip these condos once the buildings are built, so they're canceling projects, which is doubly bad for people in the housing market because it's not going to add more supply to the renting market. It's not going to add more supply to the purchasing market. This is a bad situation.
That's an easy number to go look at, is the number of housing starts, and the number of housing starts isn't keeping up. I mean, I have a clock ticking on my website of days until Trudeau gets elected or punted. I should have done one for the number of houses he promised to build, right? Remember, he promised to build 4 million homes by I think he's behind the curve now by about 250,000 because he's supposed to build one every 9 minutes. Yeah, every 9 minutes, Trudeau is supposed to build a house between now and.
How would you get the metrics for that to like make it so every time a house gets built, it would actually tick off?
I can find that. It's just a little program. You can just find it. It's the same as the debt clock that the Canadian Taxpayers Federation has. You can have just a little clock that increases by 1 every 9 minutes or something like that, and put a little title on there that says, I don't know, houses not built since Trudeau's promise. It's right up there with the number of trees not planted and the number of canoes not sold. Like
fair enough.
Can you believe that? Like, think about those weird promises. He promised that, right? He promised a $2,000 tax credit to promote camping. He talked about providing canoes to First Nations at one point. They just want water. They don't want. Yeah, that's the one. 463. Get that off there. That's so depressing.
Well, they're gonna get Trump before, and then things will start looking good, and then it'll be even more incentive for the Canadians to vote.
I hope he gets elected a year before our guy does. I just hope Trump doesn't do anything silly to really make people scared about conservative politics. So hopefully Trump comes in.
Well, he didn't do anything silly when he was president. This is the thing. Everybody said that World War III was going to happen. We got the Abraham Accords. We got peace in the Middle East. We got
visited
no new
Korea.
conflicts.
Yeah.
He tamped down that whole Korea thing that was getting really hot, especially for the Japanese. And I have a vested interest there. So yeah, things went a lot better than what people were anticipating. And then yet the media still made a frenzy over nothing. Everything was looking good.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've made no, I don't hide the fact I love Trump, but I do say, I said last time, I just wish get off Twitter. He's okay when he talks, but on Twitter he was a little abrasive. And get off Twitter. Hopefully, he learned a little bit about that, right? Get a slightly better PR team, because you do such great work, Mr. Trump. Just keep doing the great work, and then stay off the media, and then we'll be good. And then let Trudeau
I'm the
talk.
opposite. I loved it.
Yeah. Well, no, he provides great sound bites and great memes. Of course he does, but he plays into the left. Yeah, interesting times, man. Interesting times. We'll see what happens in the. Well, so we actually, for Trump, when do they vote? When does he officially get the nomination? By the end of this week?
Well, he's already officially nominated, and then that was the purpose of the RNC. The Republican National Convention. And so the vote is November. I think November 4th.
Right. So he's the candidate now. He's officially the candidate. The team is selected. The Republicans have their two going forward.
Oh, you should have seen the convention too when Mitch McConnell came in to say that their delegates are going for Trump, and they were booing him. People are against the establishment now. It's mainstream against the establishment, and it's something great. It's something great to observe. We're moving forward. We're getting out of this rhinos and all this other stuff.
Yep. No,
all the globalists
is perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, it was a good week. I'll hook you up with Kirk. That's for sure. I'll hook you up with Kirk, and then you can have a good chat.
Let's make
and
then
we'll
Marty,
see how this week.
Where can people find you to see your take all through the rest of the week when you're not talking here with me?
I'm on Twitter, man. You know me. I'm on Twitter. I tweet. I looked at my. You're right. You said I tweet a lot. Apparently I do. I think my analytics. I tweet about 60 times a day. So
holy.
Yeah, but I do leave. Right. I was gone for 2 days. I mean, I was gone for 2 days where I was in the wilderness, where there's zero tweeting for 2 days, and then I come back and I catch up. But I'm averaging about 60, 70 tweets a day during the waking hours. Maybe what is that? Like that's one every 10 minutes.
Wow.
Put the phone down. No, I love tweeting, man. I love it, but I don't know what counts as a tweet. I think just retweeting counts as a tweet, which isn't. I would say an original post by me. I do about 6 of those a day. I try to keep them. I try to do what I'm known for, which is I don't want to just repeat other people's stuff. I want to make a commentary. I'm still like inflation for me is a great example. Today I tweeted a bit about inflation. I want people to not just read the news and look at the numbers. I want them to think deeply about the numbers and what you're being told and what's truthful and what's not. So when numbers like inflation come out, stuff like Trump getting shot at, that's not my forte. That's not me. I retweet, but inflation numbers this week I was all I actually, inflation was a fascinating one. And then this morning I was talking about cattle prices, and people like, what the hell do cattle prices have to do with inflation? And I'm like, cattle prices are like, they're like oil, man. Cattle is something that is real, that you could trade with somebody else.
Wait a few months and they'll reflect on the price of beef in the supermarket. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Exactly. So if you want to know what's really happening to the economy, you can't just trust the Bank of Canada. You got to go look at other things. And when the Bank of Canada says no, prices aren't coming up, and you go, well, I look at the cattle prices and they're going up. So and they're real. They're that's a real item. But anyways, find me on Marty Up North on Twitter. Absolutely.
All right,
cool.
Let's do this again next week.
All right, bud. Cheers, everyone.